descend to life with him, thy heart desires. O Satyavan, O luminous Savitri, I send you forth above beneath the stars, a dual power of God in an ignorant world. In a hedged creation, shut from limitless self, bringing down God to the insentient glow, lifting earth being to immortality.
Good morning. So we're continuing in Book 11. We're at page 702, halfway down. Beginning with descend to life with him, thy heart desires. Just what Mother was reading. So Savitri is conversing with this supreme being in this heavenly world of the supermind. And she has been insisting that she wants to descend back to earth with Satyavan, with Satyavan's soul, that they were born to uplift this human race. And just now, the Godhead is consenting to her wish. He had been asking her to ascend into this heavenly world with Satyavan and leave the earth behind. But at her insistence, he agrees and says that actually he was speaking through her voice, that this was his will that they descend back to earth. So now he is granting this wish, and he has been telling Savitri that he is now going to use her as his instrument to uplift the world, to divinize the world. In this next passage that we read, he's going to describe kind of the nature of Satyavan and Savitri, their true nature. So let's begin. And we have someone. So you can begin hearing us.
O Satyavan, O luminous Savitri, I sent you forth of old beneath the star, a dual power of God in an ignorant world. in a haze creation shut from limitless self, bringing down God to the insentient globe, lifting earth wings to immortality in the world of my knowledge and my ignorance, where God is unseen and only is heard a name, and knowledge is trapped.
So the Supreme Being is telling Savitri that actually he had sent both her and Satyavan down to the earth long ago. Through many lives, they have been helping raise the world to light. And then he describes the nature of this world, a hedged creation, shut from limitless self, a world of my knowledge and my ignorance, where God is unseen and only is heard a name, and knowledge is trapped in the boundaries of mind, and life is hauled in the dragnet of desire. And hauled is carrying, kind of dragging with effort. So a truck will haul a load of cargo or something, but also can be dragging something along. It implies kind of heavy weight and with effort. And matter hides the soul from its own sight. And then he addresses Savitri in particular. You are my force at work to uplift Earth's fate, myself that moves up the immense incline. But incline is like a ramp, ascending slope. Between the extremes of the spirit's night and day. And next he will describe Satyavan's role and his nature. So maybe we go to Margaret first and give Narayan a chance to catch up.
Boss. Yeah. He is my soul, yeah.
Yes.
He is my soul that climbs from nescient night through life and mind.
So here he is describing the truth of what Satyavan represents, and he is describing him as the soul, as his soul that climbs from nescient night through life and mind and supernature's vast to the supernal light of timelessness. So he represents the soul evolving through nature to the supernal light, and my eternity hid in moving time, and my boundlessness cut by the curve of space. So that is what the soul is evolving towards through life and mind. It climbs to the greatness it has left behind and to the beauty and joy from which it fell. The soul has fallen from its divine truth, its divine realm, into this nescience, and now is climbing back through that ignorance back to its source. To the closeness and sweetness of all things divine. To light without bounds and life illimitable. Taste of the depths of the ineffable's bliss. Touch of the immortal and the infinite. So that's what awaits the soul in its further climb out of this nescience. And then again he says, he is my soul that gropes out of the beast to reach humanity's heights of lucent thought and the vicinity of truth sublime. He is the Godhead growing in human lives and in the body of earth beings' forms. And again, he is the soul of man climbing to God in nature's surge out of the earth's ignorance. So now he'll turn to Savitri and describe her role. And let's continue.
Thou art my spirit's power, the revealing voice of my immortal word of time, pointing to the souls of man the routes to God. While the dim light from the veiled spirit's peak falls upon matter's stark and inconscient sleep, as if a pale moonbeam on a dense glade, and mind in a half-light moves amid half-truths, and the human heart knows only human love. Life is stumbling and imperfect force, and the body counts out its precious days. You shall be born into man's dubious hours, in forms that hide the soul's divinity, and show through veils of earth's doubting air my glory breaking as through clouds a sun, or burning like a rare and inward fire, and with my nameless influence fill men's lives. Yet shall they look up as to peaks of God, and feel God-like circumambient air, and rest on God as on a motionless base.
Thank you. So here he reveals her as his Shakti, my spirit's power, his divine power, and the revealing voice of my immortal word. So she brings out the expression of the divine in the world, in nature, to the soul which is evolving in nature. She represents the face of truth upon the roads of time, pointing to the souls of men, the routes to God. The mother what? The mother's talks are recorded, so that yeah. There's a reading voice. So, yeah, we see something of that revealing voice of the immortal word in the mother's words in her recorded talks. This immortal word, the full significance of that, I'm not sure. It's, in some sense, it's an expression of the divine in word, but in form in general. The Savitri, the book, is also, in a sense, this revealing voice, this immortal word, a kind of revelation of the truth in the form of words and thought. Like mantra, yes. So when we look around, we can see these signs of the divine if we look for them, pointing the way to God. And then he speaks of the world and humanity still in this half-light, this ignorance of the mind. And then it's like a pale moonbeam on a dense glade. So there is still a light that shines from above through the forms, but it's not brilliant with the full truth, but still it reveals something of the way to the divine. When mind in a half-light moves amid half-truths, and the human heart knows only human love, and life is a stumbling and imperfect force, and the body counts out its precarious days. You shall be born into man's dubious hours. Suggests that she will incarnate on earth in order to guide humanity to the divine. In forms that hide the soul's divinity and show through veils of the earth's doubting air my glory breaking as through clouds a sun. So through the incarnation of the Divine Mother, she will reveal something of the divine through veils to the doubting nature of man, to his ignorance. Or burning like a rare and inward fire, and with my nameless influence fill men's lives. Sometimes the incarnate Godhead, or acting as the Vibhuti, veiling its full divinity, still spreads its influence into the souls of humanity. And though humanity may still be enveloped in this mist, in this, half-light of mind, yet shall they look up as to peaks of God, and feel God like a circumambient air, and rest on God as on a motionless base. So though still enshrouded in the ignorance, yet through the influence of the divine, we will feel that divine presence and look up to the divine truth and rest on God. Feel that underlying divinity or infinity of being underlying all our action in life and mind. So let's continue.
Yet shall there glow on mind like a horned moon the Spirit's crescent splendor in pale skies, and light man's life upon his Godward road. But more there is concealed in God's beyond, that shall one day reveal its hidden face. Now mind dissolved, and its uncertain ray. Mind is the leader of the body and life. Mind, the thought-driven chariot of the soul, carrying the luminous wanderer in the night to vistas of a far uncertain dawn, to the end of the Spirit's fathomless desire, to its dream of absolute truth and utter bliss. There are greater destinies mind cannot surmise, fixed on the summits of the evolving path. The traveler now treads in the ignorance, unaware of his next step, not knowing his goal. Mind is not all his tireless climb can reach. There is a fire on the apex of the worlds. There is a house of the eternal's light. There is an infinite truth and absolute power.
Thank you. So through this influence of the Divine Mother in perhaps her earlier forms as the Vibhuti, showing the light to humanity such that it turns towards the truth and feels God around. So also there has developed already glowing on mind like a horned moon, the Spirit's crescent splendor in pale skies, and light man's life upon his Godward road. So there are these summits of spiritual mind which have already been revealed, which help us, lead us towards the higher reaches of divinity. And then he describes these higher reaches beyond these enlightened levels of mind. But more there is concealed in God's beyond that shall one day reveal its hidden face. Now mind is all, and its uncertain ray. Mind is the leader of the body and life. Mind, the thought-driven chariot of the soul, carrying the luminous wanderer in the night to vistas of a far, uncertain dawn, to the end of the Spirit's fathomless desire, to its dreams, to its dream of absolute truth and utter bliss. So he's saying there's something beyond mind, that mind is carrying us towards. There are greater destinies mind cannot surmise, fixed on the summit of the evolving path. So that's where mind is leading the soul to the end of the Spirit's fathomless desire, to the end of the path, we could say. And now we have seen that desire is kind of just a deformed form of life, of the higher divine life. And this desire, this fathomless desire, seems to represent perhaps this kind of burning aspiration that lies at the base of desire. Somewhere in us, in our desires, there is this longing for fulfillment. And we seek that fulfillment in, small things, in other people or whatever it may be. But ultimately, none of those satisfy. It's a fathomless desire. It comes from deep within. And ultimately, it's this longing of the soul for reunification with the divine, with its source. So it could be also, that delight of the Spirit, which is kind of the foundation of all things and is the foundation of that desire. That bliss is kind of the foundation of all the delights the satisfactions that we seek in life. And to its dream of absolute truth and utter bliss. So that is ultimately what the soul is seeking, and it's behind kind of the core, hidden within our desires. Desires take an ignorant form. They don't know what they're seeking, so they take this kind of limited form. Well, he's yeah. Well, he has a singular summit here, fixed on the summit of the evolving path. So he has a singular path and a singular summit. So I don't know that there's all different ones. But then later on he changes it somehow. Okay. Return destinies. Fixed on the summit of the evolving path. Now there's unaware of next step. Mind is we can certainly take all different paths on the way, but ultimately there is this kind of journey of the soul that's leading from the nescience to the absolute truth. Right? So there is this basic one path that the soul is following. It may meander along the way into all sorts of different bypaths, we could say. But ultimately, it gets back to this path that leads to the truth. This path is capital I. Yeah. This is the sunlit. Okay. This is the sunlit path, the direct path. Okay. Yeah, we could say the main path, the direct path. But the traveler now treads in the ignorance, unaware of his next step, not knowing his goal. As a result of that, we wander, we meander along these different bypaths. Why does the mind exist? Well, it's a growing consciousness and awareness in the evolution. So the evolution is starting out from nescience, an absolute absence of any consciousness. And then it gropes through life, which is kind of instinctual. It doesn't really know where it's going. It just kind of follows the moment's impulse unconsciously. And out of that, mind evolves. So it's a greater awareness, and it has some sense of maybe what it's, seeking or looking for. So a greater light comes into it, a greater order, a more direct route, let's say. It gets closer to that, fundamental path that the soul is seeking. But out of mind, it's still a limited light. It's still ignorant. So out of that, a greater consciousness evolves. And that's what he's speaking of here, this greater light. He had spoken already of this at the heights of the mental consciousness, some higher light. Yet shall there glow on mind like a horned moon, the spirit's crescent splendor in pale skies. That was at the bottom of the page, the previous page. So that's kind of a spiritual mind developing from the intellectual mind, let's say. But even beyond that, there is a greater awareness, a greater spiritual light that is going to emerge. And that's what he's describing here. There is a fire on the apex of the worlds. There is a house of the eternal's light. There is an infinite truth and absolute power.
But before you also say O Savitri, thou art my spirit power, the revealing voice of my immortal world. And in the record of yoga, revelation is the higher stage.
The what?
The revelatory stage.
Revelation is the highest stage of mind or something? Or?
And so the word which is uttered from this level is the highest possible.
Okay. So revelation can mean different things. There's kind of a revelation of the spiritual mind. There's a revelation in the supermind.
It's about the revelatory stage.
The revelatory stage. Okay. Okay. So he speaks of that in the record of yoga, you're saying. Okay.
So does it mean that we are saying there's one path leading to one summit? It's different from what Gita is saying, that there are different paths leading to me. I'm just trying to forget that it's the same thing or it's...
So in the Gita, you're saying that there are many different paths and they all lead to the divine. Yeah. I think it's similar here, but fundamentally all those paths lead to the divine. So they become in the end one path. No?
So we search for a path, whatever is...
Yeah, each person in the ignorance finds their own kind of route in a way to the divine. But eventually they get onto this kind of more direct path, right?
One thing is what one said, the aspiration to the supreme is important. This moment is a symbol of spiritual life. Spiritual light in the mind is...
Yeah, this horned moon. Yeah, it's a kind of a spiritual light there in the mind. Shall we continue? Would you like to read, or?
I'm not sure where to start. As I start reading, where do I start?
Well, I will tell you.
I didn't bring my reading
So we're at the
glasses.
Spirit's mightiness. Okay. Okay.
The spirit mightiness shall cast off its marks, its greatness shall be felt, shaping the world course. It shall be seen in its own windless beams, a star rising from the inconscient night, a sun climbing to supernatural peak, amending the dubious middle way. A few shall glimpse the miraculous origin, and some shall feel anew the secret force. And they shall turn to meet a nameless state, adventure into a mightier day. Ascending out of limiting breadth of mind, they shall discover the word hook, design, and step into the truth, the right, the vast. We shall reveal to them the hidden eternity, the breath of infinitude not yet revealed, some rapture of bliss that made the world, some ruse of the force of God, omnipotence, some beam of the omniscient mystery.
Thank you. There is now kind of a deepening of the tone of the narrative. He becomes a little more prophetic, prophesizing what will come. It kind of began in the last part of the last passage, where he's describing there is a fire on the apex of the worlds, there is a house of the eternal's light, there is an infinite truth and absolute power. So it's kind of a opening description of the supermind, this next stage in the evolution. And he's now going to describe more of that revelation in the world of that light and power and truth. So he begins, the Spirit's mightiness shall cast off its mask. Now, the truth is still hidden behind a mask, behind the mask of mind, divided, not really the full and true light of the Spirit. It shall cast off its mask. Its greatness shall be felt, shaping the world's course. It shall be seen in its own veilless beams, a star rising from the inconscious night, a sun climbing to supernature's peak. Abandoning the dubious middle way suggests kind of abandoning these kind of half measures, these incomplete realizations of spiritual mind, these compromises with the ignorant nature, that will be abandoned, and a few shall glimpse the miraculous origin, and some shall feel in you the secret force. I think he's referring here to Savitri. And they shall turn to meet a nameless tread. adventures into a mightier day. So these souls are going to be touched by this greater truth and become adventurers into this greater truth. And they will be ascending out of the limiting breadth of mind. They shall discover the world's huge design and step into the truth, the right, the vast. This description of the truth, the right, the vast was the Rig Veda's way of describing supermind. You shall reveal to them the hidden eternities. Again, Savitri, or her incarnation, her later incarnation perhaps. The breath of infinitudes not yet revealed, some rapture of the bliss that made the world, some rush of the force of God's omnipotence, some beam of the omniscient mystery. Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know that we can fix a definite meaning to it, but I think it's that compromise kind of between the spiritual truth and the inconscient base from which we're operating. And all, you know, between that, we're in this dubious middle way where it's not, there is no kind of absolute truth. You know, it's kind of always a compromise. It's a limited form of truth the spiritual mind can reach, but it's still only a limited form of it.
What is surmise?
It kind of means contemplating, musing upon something.
So he's speaking about this birth which is going to take that away. Savitri comes to life. But after that, there is no history of she preaching or spreading the word. Maybe some other beauty of incarnation. Is there some description somewhere that after she comes back to life with Satyavan, she spreads this light? I mean, he's saying that you go down.
He speaks something of that, I mean, of her influence earlier on when he was describing Savitri, much earlier still, I think when she was at the palace, but like news of her greatness was spreading in the world already. Something, you know, there is that. Yeah, I don't know that he speaks, you know, directly of her returning to Earth with Satyavan and what they do at that point. There's some description, but
and she says to live oneness and to live love and living oneness to all the time was stages. In the end will come when they come back and they will meet all these stages. And the sages, she says this. They are surprised that has come and Satyavan's Satyavan's father has all kinds of people. They asked him.
Yeah, there are some at the very end of the poem when they return to Earth and meet the others, Satyavan's family and the rishis and sages that are accompanying them. And they marvel at her, but there isn't any much specific, there is just kind of some general allusions to her greatness.
That's what I was. Maybe some other literature, some other mention.
Mm.
Like Buddha keeps on spreading.
See, and there is like this sentence from that part on 723. O woman's soul, what light, what power revealed, working the rapid marvels of this day, opens for us by thee a happier age. So, but here he's seems to be speaking more generally about the advent of the supramental age here, and much more specifically, and he's addressing Savitri in that you are bringing that, but I'm not sure if he's referring necessarily to this particular life, because in the next passage that we'll read next, he seems to suggest it will come later. So we could read that section next, maybe Brian?
But when the hour of the divine draws near, the mighty mother shall take birth in time, and God be born into the human clay, in forms made ready by your human lives. Then shall the truth supreme be given to men. There is a being beyond the being of mind, an immeasurable cast into many forms, a miracle of the multitudinous one. There is a consciousness mind cannot touch, its speech cannot utter, nor its thought reveal. It has no home on earth, no center in man, yet is the source of all things thought and done, the fount of the creation and its works. It is the origin of all truth here, the sun orb of mind's fragmentary rays, infinity's heaven that spills the rain of God, the immense that calls to man to expand the spirit, the wide aim that justifies his narrow attempts, a channel for the little he tastes of bliss.
Thank you. Let's pause. So we see here that he seems to be speaking of a later incarnation of the Divine Mother, when the hour of the divine draws near, the mighty Mother shall take birth in time, and God be born into the human clay, in forms made ready by your human lives. So Satyavan and Savitri are an earlier incarnation of these two divine beings who shall come and bring the supermind down on earth. And then shall the truth supreme be given to men.
Multiple forms of God.
Mm.
One person, many forms.
Yeah, incarnations of this, later incarnations, you could say, of Savitri and Satyavan. And we might presume Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. And then he describes this supramental consciousness again in kind of more detail. And the being, this supramental being or consciousness that is going to arise. So there is a being beyond the being of mind, and immeasurable, cast into many forms. A miracle of the multitudinous one. I find this sentence quite powerful and revealing that this new divine being is not limited to one form, that it experiences itself and all living beings. Yeah, this supramental, even this Superman consciousness, I think, is also of this nature. It's not just tied to one form, one person, but it feels itself everywhere in everyone. And immeasurable, cast into many forms. A miracle of the multitudinous one. And then it describes more. There is a consciousness mind cannot touch. Its speech cannot utter, nor its thought reveal. It has no home on earth, no center in man. Yet is the source of all things thought and done, the fount of the creation and its works. So now he ties this consciousness also with the ultimate creator of all things, all beings. It's one with God, God in the sense of the creator. It is the origin of all truth here, the sun orb of mind's fragmentary rays. And we see in a way here the relation of mind to that. Mind is like a fragmentary ray of that sun orb, that sphere of light. Infinity's heaven that spills the rain of God. The immense that calls to man to expand the spirit. It also is calling us upward to unify with it, Margaret.
In this way, it comes to me also what I got from other parties of things, that also human beings, through our work of growing of consciousness, we are widening the this space of the spirit behind. Because through us, the supreme is learning, is widening. So in this way, we have an important role to play. This is the search of nature, and all this will bring more and more aspects in the conscious and open area.
Yeah. That in a way gets a little bit to Snigna's question about the role of mind, but it's also, I mean, we can look at it in two ways. One, evolving mind out of life and becoming a clearer consciousness, more aware of its direction and aim. But there is also this descending role of mind, that the divine also widens out its influence in the world through mind. It becomes a channel of the light, a ray, of this sun through which it can enlighten the denser layers of consciousness as well.
There's also the Einstein and others, they have expressed their never got the insight of higher world through thinking for us, always through experience.
Yeah, there are these greater revelations of truth or greater insights into truth, intuitions that come through the higher reaches of mind, which also leads humanity on its path.
So the supermental sun is always that symbol, and the fragmentary rays, these are the fractals. With everything that's within and everything, and then it all rains down. It turns it into rain, it turns it into a metaphor, an earth metaphor, because it's the rain that is God. It's very interesting.
Rain. Yeah, it changes. He uses this symbol of rain, or not he, but it's used in the Vedas also, right? This, the rain of God, it kind of pours down through the influence of these gods in the form of rain. Oh, she's saying there's a flower called the supermental rain.
I've heard from people who their other side, you see the supermental descending, and they say it's like little dots of light, and it's like rain. It's still more exposure.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just some comments here suggesting that we may see this influence of the descent of the supermind through these kind of particles or something of light descending, but also symbolically through the rain and through the rays of light. But all of these things also give us intuitions, give us insights into the truth to which our souls are aspiring, the wide aim that justifies his narrow attempts, a channel for the little he tastes of bliss. So we can continue. Would you like to read? Some shall be made.
Some shall be made the glory's receptacles and vehicles of the Eternal's luminous power. These are the high forerunners, the heads of time, the great deliverers of earthbound mind, the high transfigures of human clay, the firstborn of a new supernal race. The incarnate dual power shall open God's door, eternal supermind touch earthly time. The superman shall wake in mortal man and manifest the hidden demigod, or grow into a god light and god force, revealing the secret deity in the cave. Then shall the earth be touched by the Supreme. His bright, unveiled transcendence shall illumine the mind and heart and force, the life and act, to interpret his inexpressible mystery in a heavenly alphabet of divinity's signs. His living cosmic spirit shall enring, annulling the decree of death and pain, erasing the formulas of ignorance with the deep meaning of beauty and life's hid sense. The being ready for immortality, his regard crossing infinity's mystic waves, bring back to nature her early joy to live, the metered heartbeats of a lost delight, the cry of a forgotten ecstasy, the dance of the first world creating bliss.
Thank you. So this is one of the culminating passages of the poem, I think, of prophesizing what the advent of the supermind on earth. And here he's describing that some individuals shall be made the glory's receptacles. They shall receive this supramental light and force and vehicles of the eternal's luminous power. These are the high forerunners, the heads of time, the great deliverers of earthbound mind, the high transfigurers of human clay. Suggests something of what they must do or what they will do, deliver the earthbound mind. Yeah, I think free it is the sense that I'm getting. Become free of that earthbound mind. And the high transfigurers of human clay. Also, they will have to transfigure their physical form. The firstborn of a new supernal race. And then he goes back to this incarnate dual power, this later incarnation of Satyavan and Savitri that will be born when the hour of the divine draws near. They shall open God's door, eternal supermind touch earthly time. Yes, I believe he's subtly referring to Sri Aurobindo and Mother. Right. Mm. Mm. And he puts in the solution in what way? Oh. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. Yeah, it recalls that earlier passage of these massive barrier breakers. I forget. Do you know where that passage is? Mm-hmm. Right. He speaks of that here. So this before this full supramental being who is completely transformed being with a different physical form, first will come this Superman, shall wake in mortal man. So this is this intermediate being who will be born in a human body, but develop or awaken into a supramental consciousness. I think it was also about the vision. He saw the flaming pioneer. Ah, yeah. Right. So then he describes what they're going to do. So there was a vision of that. And here again, though, it's a kind of a prophecy of this. Yeah. Right. Maybe somebody could find that passage. Might be interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting passage that came earlier on, but it would be nice to maybe revisit it, but we'd have to find it. But here, again, yes, he speaks of the superman who shall manifest the hidden demigod. So, because here, demigod, because it's part divine, part human. A human birth, but it has a divine consciousness. And at this time, when this being, the superman, arises, then then shall the earth be touched by the Supreme. His bright unveiled transcendence shall illumine the mind and heart and force the life and act to interpret his inexpressible mystery in a heavenly alphabet of divinity's signs. I think it's interesting that he uses these words, illumine the mind and heart and force the life and act. It's as if this power really will kind of force the life to change and transform and express it. It's going to be interpreted, this inexpressible mystery of the divine will be interpreted, will be expressed in a kind of a way through mind and life of the individual. Yes. But interpret, right. Right. So, but he's going to do that. He's going to do that through the mind and heart and life and act of this intermediate being will be interpreting the truth through these forms, or interpreting the inexpressible mystery. Yeah. Right. So, yes.
It's still confusing the force of the mind, the heart, and force the life.
Yeah.
It's confusing what he means by the life.
And act.
And force the life.
And act. Not just life.
It's different.
No, it's not different. It's part of the same. He's going to force both. Right? He's going to force the life and act to interpret.
This is one noun, like the force. So that's not very clear to me. He's he's giving different nouns. Like mind, heart, like the force.
No.
He says act.
Oh.
So I'm a bit confused. I'm just trying to
I'm suggesting that force is a verb here, not a noun. Otherwise, I don't think it makes sense. No, I think force here is a verb. Yeah, act, life and act are nouns. Yeah. Hmm?
Shouldn't it be force like to act? I would have preferred to instead of the. I mean, if I would.
Well,
That would have made it clear.
you could use it that, you could say it that way, but he's kind of separating them out, making a distinction between them. In a way, act is a little bit more connected with the physical, no? We act through the physical. Mm. Yeah.
But maybe it's also a way to say that all the aspects will be available.
Right. Yes, that's, in the end, that's correct. All of these different aspects of the nature will express the divinity, the supramental light and force. Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. So yes, all these different aspects of the nature, which are also different aspects of the divine. And then his living cosmic spirit shall enring. Enring, encircle.
Maybe now I'm thinking force is an adjective. Force the life. Life is a force. Maybe use that.
Okay. And then with this cosmic spirit enringing, it will annul the decree of death and pain. It will cancel this death and pain. Perhaps because the being becomes universalized, becomes cosmic. And so there's no longer any death. The being is no more simply an individual that perishes. It becomes a cosmic being. Erasing the formulas of ignorance with the deep meaning of beauty and life's hid sense. And then this next sentence also can be confusing. The being ready for immortality. And here, the only way that I think it makes sense is for this ready to be, again, a verb. It readies the being for immortality.
The second line is saying annulling the degree of death. That means that can also be interpreted like saying that superman will choose his time of death.
Will choose his time of death.
There is no decree like from God or from higher forces that will die at such and such.
Yeah, so this line, annulling the decree of death and pain, so no longer will they kind of determine themselves upon the being, but the being can choose, you're saying, its time of death or its experience of pain. It will be in charge, let's say.
No, I thought it meant immortality.
Yeah, it does. But that's in a sense.
Different line of thought altogether. What did Shrivindu meant by immortality? I think we discussed it earlier also. What do we mean by Superman being immortal? same body or being universal or choosing its own. That's why I'm bringing this point again.
Yeah, so I think you're both right. It's kind of, it brings immortality to the being, but it chooses. He's saying immortality means one's choice of when one would die or not. So one isn't. Okay. Okay.
Not calling you evolved enough. Some of them choose the maybe. I'm just saying the annulling may be a degree also, and annulling can be there.
So, yeah, he speaks of immortality here, and he speaks of readying the being for immortality. So it's preparing, in a sense, the being for immortality. But also then it will bring this bliss into the life. And perhaps that's the most important part of this here at the end. The metered heartbeats of a lost delight, the cry of a forgotten ecstasy, and the dance of the first world creating bliss. So we have to stop. I'm sorry, we're like over time already. Page what? 344. So that's that earlier passage we were referring to. Yeah, so that was in the canto, the vision and the boon. So that was where Aswapati meets the Divine Mother on the summits of consciousness. And he has then this vision of the kind of coming transformation of the world. But we can, yeah, right. It starts on 343. So we don't have time, unfortunately, to read it now, but you can read, yeah, maybe we can read next time. Okay, let's.
There is an infinite truth, an absolute power. The Spirit's mightiness shall cast off its mask. Its greatness shall be felt, shaping the world's course. It shall be seen in its own veilless beam. A star rising from the inconscient night, a sun climbing the supernature's peaks.
Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.